On this week's Gridiron Report, we have some NFL trade news, our very first Lions preview of the season against the Packers, and then we wrap up with some Grit of the Week, so let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim, from the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Gridiron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire, Gridiron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud, champions are born from the roar of the crowd.
Welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mike Drop Studios. Today is Wednesday, September 3rd, and I know we've been saying this for a few weeks. It definitely has felt like it. We've been teasing about football being back, but we are actually here. Football is back. We're in our first preview of the season. Football is actually officially back this week.
Yeah, man. We've been saying it. We've been saying it since what, the Hall of Fame game, which, like, can you even call that football? It's barely football. But now we're finally here, 4 weeks, whatever, removed from that. Football is back. We're in week one of the NFL season. College football was back 2 weekends ago. Last weekend was fully back. Everyone was playing last weekend. It's just like you can feel it in the air. I think all of the Midwest is in, chilly 40 degrees soup weather. It is absolutely back, and I am so pumped to be able to break down some Lions football. Finally, we made it through summer. We made it through the offseason. We're breaking down Lions football, and I am so pumped, Ty.
It's so funny how we'll take anything we can get over the summer for football. Like you just mentioned the Hall of Fame game. Like we were pumped about the Hall of Fame game and because we had no football for so long, and now that we're actually in the season, it's like I literally could not have cared less about the Hall of Fame game. But now that we're actually back into it, I'm so pumped. The first time you sit on that couch for NFL Red Zone, or the first time you hear any of those broadcast NFL theme songs, when you're sitting down there, it's gonna send chills down my spine. I just cannot stop smiling. If you had to pick one of those of all the broadcast theme songs, which one, as soon as you hear it, it's gonna hit absolute crack. Which one is your favorite? Brings you right back into football.
Let me just say that I love all of them for their own. They're all so good, but if I had to choose one, I'm going with Fox. I mean, it's iconic, and as a Lions fan growing up, Fox is predominantly the broadcasting NFC games. The Lions are almost always on Fox, especially if it's if they're playing another NFC opponent. I feel like the Fox theme song is just I can just close my eyes, just hear it. It's so good, man.
All right, well then just do me a favor, close your eyes right now. No need to imagine it. Just close your eyes for a second.
Oh, yeah. So
I have no
good.
idea how I don't know how much we're allowed to actually play of that, so we'll stop it right there. But I actually when I pulled that up, I just saw in one of the comments that they came up with that in 1994 was the first time that was broadcast, and they haven't changed it since.
Wow.
No idea if that's true or not. I literally just saw it seconds ago. But if that's the case, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That is so. I'm with you on that one. And they all take me back to a certain time. You have Thursday night football that makes me feel a certain way, and then you have Sunday night football that I think about a different point in time, and that makes me think about different football. So they're all so unique, and it's the same thing about college basketball and the March Madness and stuff. They all do different things, and it's just so funny how integral literally just a stupid theme song is. But we're so back.
Oh yeah, dude, and I hope the person who came up with that jingle, that song in 1994. That they haven't changed since. I hope that you're getting royalties, whoever you are. Maybe you still work at Fox. Maybe they gave you just the biggest pay raise of all time. Hopefully you're still cashing in on that, because we're going on over 30 years of that just iconic song that has not been changed. So kudos to whoever you are.
Imagine being at the bar and just sitting next to the guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I write jingles," and you're like, "Oh, do I know anything you've written?" You're like, "Yeah, Fox football, free drinks for life." I don't care what it is.
So sick.
Yeah, but let's actually get into some of the brass tacks of football. We can talk about how much football is back until we're blue in the face. But let's get into some actual football stuff. So obviously, this is the first week of us actually breaking down games. We talked about it last week, but if you guys were with us last season, first of all, thank you for making it through the entire offseason and being back with us for this season. If it's your first season being with us and listening with us, how these work Kyle and I will break down the previous week's games. Obviously, we release these every Wednesday, so we'll break down the previous week's games, the overall results, how it affects the standings, any injuries, any news, roster updates, how different matchups went down, everything like that. We'll break down the previous week's game, and then we will go into preview mode. We will break down the upcoming matchups, the upcoming line. We will talk about any sort of division record standings implications that might be there, and then we'll kind of go from there and kind of wrap up with any overall Lions news. So that's how we're going to do. We obviously don't have any review game this week as the preseason just ended. We're running into our first week, so no review, but we do have a preview game. Before we do get into that, and we'll break down the offense and defense here in a minute, we have some overall NFL news, the largest trade news of the offseason that really, I mean, while it is the largest thing of the NFL or the offseason for the NFL this year, it also affects the Lions in like 5 different ways. And that is the Micah Parsons trade to the Green Bay Packers. Was rumored that Micah Parsons was going to be traded all offseason. They were trying to get a deal done. It sounded like, at least from Micah Parsons' camp, he was trying to get a deal done, trying to stay in Dallas for his entire career. Obviously, it's going to be a he said kind of thing. They wanted to get a deal done. They said Jerry was being difficult. Jerry wanted to get a deal done. They said Micah was being difficult. Regardless, Micah Parsons now traded to the Green Bay Packers for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. So we'll go into kind of just our overall thoughts on this, just because it's pretty massive, just news in general for the NFL, but then how it affects the Lions in their different ways. So first and foremost, overall thoughts on the Micah Parsons trade to the Green Bay Packers.
God, man, when I saw this break, and I think my heart sank halfway to China, seeing that it was Green Bay who was the recipient of this just generational, transcendent defensive player. Yeah, I mean, this has got to be the biggest trade in the NFL in like probably almost 5 years, probably at least 3 seasons. I'm thinking like, you had 2022. I think Tyreek Hill and CMC were both in 22. Yeah, so I mean, those were blockbuster trades. I feel like we haven't had that big of a blockbuster trade until now. So this is gigantic. You're talking about a player in Micah Parsons who, I mean, he is just such a game changer. And you can't just find players like him, not even in the first round. And so I think it's just hilarious that Jerry Jones is saying, hey, we got these 2 picks that, we could find, the next Micah Parsons or the next amazing, transcendent player in this draft. I'm like, dude, you had the guy. You only gave up 2 picks for it. I'm really upset that it only took 2 picks. I feel like 2 picks is something that the Lions could have done very, very easily. The fact that Micah is now in our division, got to play him twice a year. And like I said, he's just such a game changer that, I mean, this is horrible. This is probably the worst case scenario for the Lions would be Micah Parsons traded to the Packers, and it happened.
Yeah, I go back and forth whether like I'd rather him go to the Packers or to the Bears. Like which one would be worse, just because we hate the Packers. Just forever we've hated the Packers. They've had the most success recently, so it's forever fuck the Packers. But at the same time, like the Bears have, with Ben Johnson, they actually did a pretty good job retooling their offensive line, Caleb Williams. So like I go back and forth whether I would have been more upset if it was the Bears or the Packers. But yeah, you're right. So 2 firsts and Kenny Clark. I got so much to say about this, specifically with the Lions. So first and foremost, just being on the optimistic side, which as our listeners know, I'm usually more on the pessimistic side. That's just naturally where I go. And I'll just say, thank God we don't record on whatever night that this actually dropped, because I would have torn the whole city down. Like it was bad. I've come down a little bit. I've cooled off a little bit. But so optimistically, getting Kenny Clark out of Green Bay, that's actually going to be pretty nice. Kenny Clark, obviously a D tackle, a really good D tackle in a way that's going to help us just simply because Jared is actually, and in the past, I'm not saying it's going to be this year, in the past has been pretty good against outside pressure. It's actually up the middle that he kind of struggles with the most. So kind of by the Packers trading out inside pressure for that outside pressure might help us a little bit. Additionally, the outside of our offensive line is where less of the question marks are. That's where, you got Panay on the outside, you got Decker on the outside and tackles. Like the interior of the offensive line are a lot where the question marks are, with the loss of Frank and the loss of Kevin Zeitler. So like the interior offensive line is where a lot of our question marks are, where Kenny Clark would have been. We're a little more fortified on the outside, so maybe we're able to, handle a guy like Micah Parsons off the edge a little bit better. So those are my kind of optimistic ways to look at it. I'm not going to, because like I said, I've cooled down. I wouldn't say this now, but when it first happened, only thing going through my head is like, this is what winners do. This is a winning organization that does what winners do. They've been to the top before. They want to get back there. We have never been there, and that's why we're afraid to make moves like this. Again, I'm not saying this, but I thought it when it happened. It's kind of all across all four Detroit sports in that, like, for the most part, the Wings had the dynasties back in the day, 20 years ago, whatever. But since then, everyone's kind of been very mediocre. This is a winning organization move that we've been begging them to do. The Tigers at the trade deadline ended up doing nothing. The Lions this offseason ended up doing nothing. The Red Wings, who refused to do anything at trade deadlines and just making us all trust the Steve Yzerman plan. Even the Pistons, to an extent, like, we wanted something this offseason, and we were left with Karis LeVert, and Duncan Robinson. So, like, all four sports, they all had the opportunity to go all in and just basically push it all to the center of the table and say, we want to win. We are right there. We're going to make an all-in move. And while that might be a little short-sighted, it's an all-in move, and we're going for a Super Bowl, or we're going for a championship. And that's what winning teams do. They're not afraid to push us all to the middle and say, yeah, we're going to, F them picks like the Rams used to. F them picks. We're going all in. This is a winning move. And to me, this was Green Bay Packers saying, like, we've been there before. We're all in. We know what we're doing. We're not afraid. And it's just something I wish the Lions would do at some point. And obviously, since then, you can, you come off your soapbox a little bit. You're a little bit cool, cooler heads prevail, and you say this is going to tie up the Packers, because immediately Micah Parsons got a huge contract with the Green Bay Packers. So, like, immediately they're going to be tied up with like 3 or 4 guys, and the rest of the team are going to be, getting pennies. So they're going to be financially really restricted in 2 years. But we've seen windows close really quickly. There's a chance the Lions, even without doing this, the Lions window is only 2 years. So why can't, for once, we be a winning organization, go all in, say enough is enough, we're going to win this whole damn thing now? And that's what the Packers did. And again, I'm not saying that. That's just what I thought when it happened.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, the Packers are a winning organization, multiple Super Bowls. Yeah, they went all in. And I think, to compare it to, I know I mentioned that I would love to see the Lions do something like this, and they never have. I do think in this case, it's just something they couldn't have done. I'm looking at the Parsons new contract, 4 years, $188 million. Like, you can't, if you're the Lions, you can't do that. You can't go and get Micah Parsons and then go and pay Hutch that literal exact same amount of money next year. Like, the math doesn't work there. So, like, if you did this, maybe you would have one season of overlap where you can have both of them, and then you got to go pay Hutch, and then Hutch leaves in free agency because you can't pay him. So, yes, I do what I have loved the Lions to go all in, of course. But in this sense, it just, you already have, like, literally, you have Micah Parsons at home. You have Aiden Hutchinson. Like, to have both of them would be insane. But also, for that amount of money, $190 million over 4 years, like, you couldn't do that and get Hutch. So it sucks. It sucks that, we already have Hutch. I mean, that doesn't suck, but, like, it sucks that we can't go get Micah. But I think it sucks even more that Micah is now in our division. Like, the worst case scenario, by far, I would have loved for him to go to, I mean, if you told me, yeah, you can choose between the Bears or the Packers for Micah Parsons to go, I'm hitting the Bears all day. The Bears are still the Bears. Like, yes, they'll improve, but the Packers with this are now probably, I mean, they have to be one of the favorites now, probably the second favorite behind the Eagles to win the entire NFC, probably decently heavy Super Bowl favorites now too, just because of this trade. Like, they're going to be pretty nasty. They still have holes in their team. We'll break it down, but I mean, this guy he's transcendent.
Yeah, 100%. Like, again, when it first hit, you're thinking immediately, like, why couldn't the Lions have done that? And then when cooler heads prevail, you realize, yeah, it never would have worked with Micah coming here. But at the same time, you're like, okay, if it wasn't going to be Micah, if Micah can't come to Detroit because of all the money's tied up and everything, like, can we get something similar to Micah? Can we do something so we don't just have 3, edge rushers on this roster? Like, we're sitting over here with literally nothing, and then they're going out and getting the best player and one of the best players in the league. So it's like, yeah, okay, we don't need to get top of the line stuff, but, like, God damn it, can we get a little bit of something, a little bit of help for Hutch? But my question for you is, so they end up giving up 2 firsts and Kenny Clark. It's not going to be the same, but I think, like, the closest way, not even thinking about the contract, if Dallas were to have called and said 2 firsts and Aleem McNeil for Micah Parsons, are you doing that?
No, because Kenny Clark is turning 30 in, like, less than a month. And I think you're going to see, even though he's a great player, 3-time Pro Bowler, I think you're going to see his production fall off a cliff. I mean, it's what happens to these interior defensive linemen. Like, you're just not going to be the same too many years removed from 30. So Whereas Liam McNeil, I don't have his age in front of me, but he's got to be, much younger than that. So I think
Yeah,
he's probably
25,
maybe
maybe.
25, 26. So yeah, that alone, I think that's just a huge difference, even though, yeah, Clark, 3-time Pro Bowler. Yeah, it's just his production's going to fall off a cliff. I think that player was thrown in there to make it a little bit more justifiable maybe for Jerry Jones, but I think if you're the Packers, like, yeah, I mean, you got so much great value out of this player. This player is now turning 30. Like, I think you're totally okay with letting him go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess maybe I hold Kenny a little bit higher, but if you're the Cowboys, if the Cowboys and Lions are doing that deal, I almost guarantee it would have been like that would have been their asking price. Like it would have been someone like a Liam, a starting young star, because we don't have like a Kenny who was, Kenny Clark who was a little bit older. So I almost guarantee it probably would have been a Liam and 2 first. But yeah, a lot has changed now. So kind of I'm just like going through my head. There's so many different ways how this affects Detroit. You mentioned having to pay Hutch. The other thing is the contract, and that Micah Parsons just reset the standards for edge rushers in the NFL. We already knew Hutch was going to reset it, but now it's just been reset even further. They've been kind of working towards an extension for, however many months. And it's something that Brad Holmes has actually been really good with in getting his guys locked up earlier rather than later, so that they are, they're resetting the market on their terms. Now with Micah, resetting the market and not getting Hutch under that extension, we now are going to owe Hutch a whole hell of a lot more than we were going to have to, 4 days ago. So that's another way that the Packers are going to be, they're going to be hurting a little bit financially, but the Lions are going to be hurting even a lot too because of this.
For sure, dude. Hutch is easily going to get 190 mil now. I think before this, he still probably would have gotten quite a bit of money. Like you said, he would have reset the market, but now he's going to get more money than Micah for sure. I mean, he's almost a year younger. They're both tremendous players. I do think Hutch is a little better. That's probably a homer take, hot take, whatever. Some people will probably argue that Micah's better, but either way, I mean, they're slightly different players, right? They play the same position but a little bit different. And yeah, I think Hutch is easily getting 190 now. So yeah, this isn't just affecting us when we have to play him. We also gonna have to pay our players more.
So we talked about how it affects the Packers, how it affects the Lions and their contract. You mentioned it affects the division. So the Lions, who were NFC North favorites, have now been jumped by the Green Bay Packers. So right now, Green Bay is the favorite to win the NFC North at plus 175, according to ESPN. Detroit Lions are now plus 185. So the Lions have been jumped by the Packers in the NFC North as odds-on favorite. So that's just another way that they kind of it proven that maybe they're going all in. It might work, but we can get to his injury here in a few minutes. But like the Lions are no longer favorites in the NFC North either. Yeah,
man, it's huge, and I still like the Lions to win the NFC North. I think that we're going to break down these teams they're playing Week 1 on Sunday, but I do think the Lions their offense is better. I think there are some question marks for Green Bay on the offensive side. They're specifically their wide receiver room. So I do still give this slight edge to the Lions, but Vegas clearly does not. So that's something to look at.
All right, so we can talk about the Packers and Micah Parsons literally all day, but we're going to cut to a short break, and then when we get back, we will jump into our actual preview, continue on how this Micah Parsons stuff affects that game in particular, and then the defense and the offense for the Lions itself, just after this. All right, so that's enough talk about the Packers specifically, even though we did our best to kind of wrap it into Lions stuff and how it affects the Lions. Let's get into the actual game itself. So kind of like the third or fourth or fifth, whatever, and final way that this affects the Lions is the actual game on Sunday. The Lions opening up against the Packers. Again, our very first preview of the season. Let's start it off with America's favorite game, Guess the Line. Kyle has done his best to avoid seeing what the line is set for the upcoming game. We do this every week, so he does his best to avoid it throughout the week. And then gives us his unfiltered opinion on what the line should be. Lets us know a little bit kind of where at least he's feeling, what we're feeling as a show on what the line should be. So week 1 against the Packers, what do you think the line is?
Yeah, at the Packers, Green Bay. I think this is the game of the week on Fox, right? 4:25 Eastern. I believe it's the game of the week. But yeah, this is so okay. Let me preface this by saying that this line was almost impossible to avoid, just because Week 1 of the NFL, the lines come out like 2 months in advance. Essentially, right when we find out who the Lions are playing Week 1, those lines are out there. So Unfortunately, I did see over the course of a couple months that the Packers have been favored. I think it's been maybe it started the Lions favored by 1.5. I did see it swing to Packers minus 1.5. That's the last time I saw it, and that was probably like a month ago. Just factoring in the Micah Parsons trade, that's going to move the line. I mean, we've seen the season long betting odds for the NFC North swing. I think the line in this game has to swing at least a point too. So I'm further in Green Bay's direction. I'm gonna lock in Green Bay minus 2.5 as my official guess.
Yeah, that's that. So that is exactly right. You basically walked through it perfectly. Originally, it was the Packers minus 1.5, I believe, and then because of the Micah Parsons thing, it has been moved to Green Bay Packers minus 2.5. I don't remember how many times last season the Lions were underdogs. Definitely wasn't very often. So it just kind of just going with the flow of what this season is, and just kind of being underdogs and everyone expecting the Lions to take a step back and starting the season as plus 2.5 dogs on the road against the Packers.
Yeah, this one's tough, man. I haven't just my overall thoughts that opening the season at Green Bay, like opening on the road against one of your biggest rivals, like goddamn, that should be like illegal or something. Like that's got to be the hardest possible way to start a season. And I know the Green Bay is not the best team in the NFL, but when you factor in divisional opponent, arch rival, you got to go to their house, beginning of the season. Lambeau Field is going to be just rocking. I'm praying and hoping that, Lions fans are going to be traveling for this. I know they will, but also, in years past, there has been quite a bit of Honolulu blue in Lambeau Field for these away games, really since we've gotten good past couple of years. So I feel like the Packers fans are really going to try to sell out and really try to, avoid that takeover. That Lions takeover. So I think it's going to be just an incredibly tough environment. It's just a great football environment in general. And yeah, this is a tough test, man. But I do think that, even though the Packers are now the favorites to win the NFC North, this is a time where, if you're Dan Campbell, you want your team to send a message. You're saying that, we have this chip on our shoulder now. We had the chip on the shoulder last year, no defense. People were, saying this and that. Obviously it came true in the playoffs to an extent, but this is a time to send a message that, even though we were 15-2 last year, everyone's 0-0 now. Oh no, baby. In the NFC North, we are still defending champs 2 times, and the North's got to run through Detroit. So yeah, you got to send this message. This is going to be a huge game.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree. I think that I think this helps us out because I think, like you said, there's definitely a lot of, for like 2 years now, there's been talk about how the Lions take over. Like we travel so well, Detroit fans travel so well. So like anywhere we go, the home team knows that the Honolulu Blue is going to be there. They're going to be plentiful there. And so I think like now anywhere we go, home teams are like trying to make it a point. Like we're not going to let the Lions fans take over this place. I think it's kind of a known thing at this point. And being, like you said, that we're opening against our largest rival, I think that they're going to do everything they can to not let us take that over. I haven't seen sometimes, we'll see like how many tickets have gone each way and stuff like that. And I haven't seen anything like that. But like you said, we actually played pretty well in Lambeau Field. Amon-Ra St. Brown absolutely plays fantastic. I think he loves playing at Lambeau Field. Usually it's towards the end of the season when it's really freaking cold. So it is kind of nice in that regard that like it's not going to be a tundra for us and we can kind of get our game out of the way there and not have to play in the middle of a freezing snowstorm. But I agree with you. I think they're going to do everything they can to not let us take over because like I said, the story's out. Like Detroit fans travel so well everywhere we go. Home teams are going to be like, please guys, fans come out, let's go. Let's not let the Lions take over and make this a home game for them. Let's keep the home field advantage and stuff like that. So they're definitely going to be out in like I said, and definitely in numbers. But I think the other thing you mentioned about like I think we're right where we want to be. Like if anything, this helps us out even more. The Micah Parsons stuff being even more of underdogs because like this is where this is like old school, and I say old school as in like Mark D'Antonio, Michigan State football. Like we are finally back to being the underdogs, and I think a lot of guys in this team, a lot of guys in the city, they thrive in the shadows like that. They thrive when people don't think that much of them. They thrive with a chip off their shoulder, and so I think this is exactly, and that's where Dan Campbell he's shown obviously 15-2 we were able to perform when the lights are the brightest and people do pick us to win, but I think he probably feels a little more comfortable being just underdogs in general. So those are my kind of same overall thoughts as you. I'm glad we're getting this game out of the way. But to open the season, especially with this many question marks across the coaching staff, the roster, and everything, that's a matchup hell.
So I'll break down in a little bit more detail some of those question marks, but this literally just popped in my head. The Lions are going for 3 straight wins at Lambeau Field.
Yeah,
Obviously winning the at Lambeau the last 2 seasons. So going for 3 straight. Tyler, when is the last time? Do you know the last time, or do you want to guess at the last time that the Lions have won 3 straight games in 3 straight seasons at Lambeau Field?
man, that would have had to be. I would say that had to be back in like the 90s. I don't know.
So it was in the 80s, 86 to 88, and now I actually am seeing we might already be at 3 straight. I actually have to look because I was just looking at the previous 2 seasons in my head. We may have already gotten 3 straight. So sorry for the listeners if you already know this. If we've already been at 3 straight, I'm probably gonna look it up right now or maybe in just a little bit. But either way, the last time before either we already did it or before we're doing it on Sunday was 1986 to 1988. So it's been quite a while.
Well, yeah, just thinking back, you had the Jamal Williams game where that was the playoff game. We kept him out of the playoffs, right? And then we had Amon-Ra St. Brown kissing the fans and getting that beer poured on him. So that was 2. There might be a third in there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, most of those are happening at the end of the season when it's pretty difficult to play out in the cold. And everyone's talked about Jared Goff playing outside and playing in the cold specifically. So like getting it out of the way is nice, but I just wish it was maybe like week 3 or something. But let's get into the actual offense and defenses of the matchup. So let's start with the Lions offense. What are you looking at for the Lions offense against this now revamped Packers defense? What kind of match are you looking for? How do you think we're going to perform? What do you think from the offensive side for the Lions?
Yeah, so I think just firstly, the Lions are coming off just such a stellar season. They were the #1 scoring offense in the NFL in 2024, and yet we have a lot of big departures. I think probably, one of the biggest is actually Coach Ben Johnson, so lead play caller for the Lions the past, I think, 3 seasons at least. He has obviously parted ways. He's now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. So you lose your play caller, you lose your offensive coordinator there. You also lose your All-Pro center Frank Ragnow, one of the best centers in the league. Kevin Zeitler also an exit. So that offensive line is half completely new versus last year. So those are huge departures. You got a couple of key additions as well. Isaac Tesla, who's now officially taken over as the team's wide receiver 3. Tate Rutledge, who is going to start the season at guard. There were some rumors that he might, slide into that center spot. He's going to play his natural position of guard right now. He's going to slide into right guard. You got Mahogany moving over to left guard. Obviously, your left and right tackles are the same as last year. And then, yeah, you got Graham Glasgow at center. So, yeah, the offensive line is half revamped, like I said. So there's a lot of question marks there. And, yeah, just with a brand new play caller, with Johnny Morton, more unproven. I think, he's coming from Denver, where I think he might have been a quarterback's coach. So I don't know how much experience he has calling plays. That's a question mark right there. So you hate to have all these question marks going into a very, very tough opponent and, a team that has a pretty decent defense, and then they just added Micah Parsons. So yeah, this Packers D is very good, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Lions offense struggle at times on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think there's going to be times just because of all the question marks that they struggle. And we'll get into our defense here in a minute, but last year it was kind of pretty much the opposite. The offense was scoring 40 points. The defense was just basically decimated by injury, and so unfortunately they were giving up a lot of points as well. So it was kind of the offense carrying us. I think we'll definitely get a little bit of the inverse at least during this week, just because of everything we just mentioned with the Packers defense getting better. I will say, on the offensive line, Graham Glasgow went down with a minor leg injury on, I think, Thursday. He exited practice. Just questionable. I don't think it's that serious. Again, in the injury report, it was just listed as a minor leg injury. So I don't think there's anything that big there. Probably just being a veteran that's close to the season. They pulled him. They're like, yeah, you're done for the week or whatever. So Graham Glasgow, something to note there. You have Taylor Decker, who went back down in August, went down with his injury. Undisclosed. He's been ramping up his progression and his playing over the last few weeks. So it seems like Taylor Decker will be back in time, but already a team that has a lot of question marks on the offensive line has 2 veterans that are not spry chickens. They're coming back from injuries. So it'll be important to note there. The other thing is, though, as much as the defense for the Packers has been kind of rebuilt this past offseason. They do have a lot of, they're starting the season with a lot of injuries on that defense. You have Micah Parsons, who we just spent 30 minutes talking about. Apparently there's some rumors and stuff about some back and some spine joint back injuries that maybe wasn't disclosed when the Cowboys traded him. He obviously passed a physical and they got the long-term deal done and everything, but apparently there was some back injuries that wasn't really disclosed, and he needs at least literally just epidural shots in order to play on Sunday. So he's questionable. There actually is people that are saying like he's not going to be playing in this game against us. So like, never root for injuries, but fingers crossed we don't have to go against him in his first game as a Green Bay Packer. Xavier McKinney, their all-pro safety, also went down with a calf injury. Sounds like he is going to be okay and is going to play. He's listed as questionable. It sounds like he is going to play. But they have those two guys. They have a number of other guys, Nate Hobbs, cornerback, a lot of other questionable defenders. So like as much as we are questionable on the offensive line, just kind of across the defense for the Packers, they're already dealing with a little bit of the injury bug, so that might help us in a little bit. But I agree, this offense might sputter a little bit. It's a trial by fire for this offensive line for Johnny Morton, like you said, and I think we're going to learn a lot about the offense. I think we're going to need to be patient with this offense. I think, like I said, last year we were babied a little bit with putting up 40 points a game. I think we got to be patient with the offense this year as they kind of figure out their identities. But I think it's going to be tough, I think.
Yeah, and I just want to say a bit of housekeeping too. Did just check, and yes, the Lions are going for 4 straight wins at Lambeau Field. So apologies to the listeners. Thanks for being patient with me, as we might have to be patient with the Lions as well. And yeah, that's the first time that they've won this many consecutive games at Lambeau since that streak in the 80s. I think it actually went from 86 to 91 there. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. But last thing for me is, even though we're thinking that the Lions are going to take a step back, I don't think it's going to be a huge step back. I don't think there's going to be any massive regression. I do still think that this Lions team is a top 5 offense in the NFL, and should be treated accordingly. Like there's no reason to believe that they're going to just somehow not be able to run the ball at all because of these new additions on the offensive line. They may struggle at times, but at the end of the day, when you have one of the best running backs in the NFL and Jahmyr Gibbs, you have probably, I think, the best 1-2 tandem of Gibbs and Monty in your backfield. Like, you're still going to be able to run the ball. You have St. Brown, you have Jameson Williams, Isaac Tesla on the outside, Sam Laporta. You have just a plethora of weapons. This team is still going to be able to move the ball.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to be. I'm glad you mentioned the running game, because, like we mentioned, with Kenny Clark being traded away and then being a little more vulnerable up the middle and just basically subbing that out for pressure on the outside, I think our running backs are going to have a fantastic game. I think it's going to be less of an air attack and more on the ground, which, as someone who owns David Montgomery in fantasy, I am all for. But I think, like, if we come out there and we, the first drive, we go a quick 3 and out, I think it's going to, like, people are going to explode, right? It's the game of the week. All eyes are going to be on the Lions because they're, so fun to watch and there's so much turnover. Like, everyone is calling for us to take a step back. I think it's important to, if we go 3 and out on that first drive, to take a breath, not freak out. And make sure that, we're okay. Let's get the run game going. The last thing I'll mention about the offense is that there were 3 guys missing from practice today: Sione Vakai, Isaac Tesla, and Trevor Nowaski. So Sione is not really going to get that much work anyways. He's the 4th string running back, more of a special teams gadget kind of guy. But Isaac, I'm just trying to pull up to see what exactly. I'm not seeing any updates for Isaac and why he was pulled from practice, or I guess just didn't practice today. But it'll definitely be something to keep an eye out as we go into our first week on the offensive side.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too serious. I just tried to Google it too, and I'm not seeing much there. So I know DC and the Lions try to keep those a little bit tight to the vest, but I know just league policy, you have to disclose injuries. So we'll see on that. I think no reason to be alarmed there. Hopefully not.
Yeah. So let's move over to the defensive side for the Lions. My overall thoughts, and I kind of alluded to them when we were going through the offense there. Last year, we were carried heavily by our offense. The defense, not that it was a bad defense, we were just so decimated from injury. It primarily all hit the defensive side. There was a few things on the offensive side, but primarily it was on the defensive side. Now, there still is a number of guys out. You still got Ezekiel Turner, who's on the injured reserve. Josh Pascal is out. Malcolm Rodriguez is still being out. Ali McNeil, obviously, still out, not expected to return until about December. So, we still have a bunch of those injuries. But other than those guys, and other than our gripes with the defensive line and not really adding that much support on the defensive line, this defense should be a whole hell of a lot better than it was last year. And so going against this Packers offense, that like I don't really have any faith in this Packers offense. Josh Jacobs is a fantastic running back. We talked about him last year. I'm pretty sure he had some pretty good games against us last year. I think Josh Jacobs is fantastic. Other than him, I should say, this offense doesn't scare me really at all. Their receivers are already really decimated with injuries. Jaden Reed went down with a foot injury. He was seen with a walking boot, I think, last week. Christian Watson is already out. Another one of the receivers, Datavion Wicks, is questionable with a calf injury. Took part in practice, but still questionable. So like their offense is already decimated, and even at a whole healthy 100% offense, I'm not that scared of it. So I think this defense is going to set the tone early for the Lions this season and carry our offense as they maybe struggle a little bit out the gate, like we said.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Green Bay's offense. Their best wide receiver target by far is rookie Matthew Golden, and I do think that he's going to be a very good player. But yeah, I mean, rookie wide receivers, we see it. We talked about it last week. You see it all the time. Like it takes time for these guys to really develop into great players. Just the offenses are so complex now. This is just a different game. The NFL is a different beast than it was in college. You're going up against these cornerbacks that you don't see anything like that in college. So yes, I do think Matthew Golden's going to be good, but if he's your best target right now. Other than that, you got Tucker Kraft, pretty good tight end, but Jaden Reed, who, yeah, I think he's got a chronic foot issue, something. I don't know what's going on there, but I think it's something where he's electing not to have surgery. So he's just going to kind of play through that pain the entire season. So that's not great. And wishing the best for Jaden, but in this case, the Lions case, I just feel like, yeah, the wide receiver room for the Packers, it's nothing special. It's nothing special at all. But I do think they're going to be able to run the ball. Jordan Love, I mean, I expect him to still have a pretty good game. Josh Jacobs, like you said, he's an awesome talent, and he had great success, his first year in Green Bay. He's going to have a lot more success this year. So yeah, they're going to move the ball, but I think this is a team where the Lions can, really sell out, stop that run, and make Jordan Love beat you. Make a rookie wide receiver and a couple banged up receivers at best, beat you. And I don't see it. So in that sense, I don't exactly see this line being 2.5. I think in my mind, it's more of a pick 'em.
Yeah, and I think if we're going to talk about the question marks on the offensive line for the Lions and how there's, we don't exactly know how they're going to be, they're going to take a step back. I think it's also important to point out that the Packers offensive line is not super great in their own regards. So they have 2024 first round draft pick Jordan Morgan, who's expecting to make his first career start at right guard. He's a sophomore, so just played 186 snaps on offense as a rookie last year. So Jordan Morgan, still a young guy trying to figure it out how exactly the offensive line works in the NFL. The Packers also signed Aaron Banks, who was third among guards with a 65.4 PFF overall grade throughout his career. So nothing too crazy, nothing too, worrisome there from a Detroit Lions defensive line standpoint. You obviously have Elton Jenkins, who is actually going to be moving on the offensive line. So he is moving similar to our line, how guys trying to figure out different positions. And then Zach Tom, who is one of the best right tackles in the league. So their offensive line has essentially just as many question marks as the Lions do. It's just that the Lions offensive line was so dominant. Like we have taken a bigger step down than them, but they weren't quite up as high as us, if that makes sense. So the Packers offensive line isn't anything to really write home about. The defensive line, with having a healthy Hutch and a healthy Davenport, which is something we haven't been able to say in damn near a year, and when we could, it was literally only like 2 games or something. Like there's a chance we could eat on the defensive line. There is one injury on our side. Terrion Arnold went down on Tuesday, I believe, with a hamstring injury. A lot of these guys that we just went through, all these injuries, it's so close to the regular season now. We saw practice and stuff like that. We've gone through all of this through the offseason, that like any sort of question mark or anything that really pops up, they're just going to shut him down for a day or two, mark him as questionable, and let him get healthy for the last few days of the offseason. So Terrion Arnold is also considered a question mark. Sounds like he is going to be good to go. He just had to exit practice early on Tuesday with a hamstring injury. So that's really the only real question mark of guys that we didn't already know was going to be out for this game. Like I said, the long-term guys like Aleem and Rodrigo, stuff like that. So I think I'm not afraid of this Packers offense. I think the defense, like I said, is going to set the tone, and I think they're going to be able to carry the offense as the offense figures themselves out, with the exception of the running game. Our running game's gonna eat, I think, during this game.
Yeah, for sure, man. Excited to see Hutch and his return. Everything that we've heard in camp is that he's healthier, better than ever, faster than ever. It's definitely excited to see him in his return. I think it's going to be great to see big number 97 back on the field and getting after Jordan Love. And I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised if we saw a sack or two from Hutch. So again, not a hot take by any stretch. I think my hot take from last week got kind of torn to shreds from TikTok and Instagram, saying that Jameson Williams was going to be the Lions' lead receiver. So I don't know. Maybe social media just doesn't like my hot take, so I'm just going to stop doing it. But I am going to say that Hutch is going to get a sack or two. But one guy that I really haven't heard that much buzz about. Maybe I'm just completely missing any like social media posts or whatever. I think he's probably missed a bit of time with some injury. Tyleik Williams. Haven't heard much about the Lions' first round pick. I feel like all the buzz has been on Isaac Tesla for probably good reason. He's at a really good camp, as we've talked about. But Tyleik Williams, I'm assuming he's healthy. I'm assuming he's playing. I know that the Lions are going to lean heavily on him, especially with Aleem McNeil out for a good part of the season with the injuries he sustained last year. So I don't know have you heard about Tyleik Williams? I just feel like there hasn't been any buzz.
Yeah, so Tyleik it's just easier for a guy like Isaac Tesla to capture the eyes and the notice of fans because he plays such a premium position. He's out there making highlight reels. Like a highlight reel from a receiver is, there's a bunch of oohs and ahs. Like it's insane. A highlight reel from, both offense and defensive guys, like it's just a lot less flashy. Tyleik Williams has had a great preseason. I know a lot of people, Dan Campbell is extremely excited for him. I've seen multiple articles and lists of like rookies that have looked fantastic so far in their short careers throughout the preseason. And Tyleik was really right in the middle of that. He's had a really good showing. And being that we need defensive interior line help as much as we do, I expect him. I mean, he's going to be as many downs as he can physically go, and I think he's going to be really important. So I agree with you. There hasn't been a lot of talk just about him and his showing, but I think that's just simply because of and it's not even like as flashy as like edge rushers. Like edge rushers, you do know they're kind of they're like tight ends and stuff like that. I think the interior positions, they just don't get as much love. But Tyleik Williams has had a great preseason, and I think he'll be, I think he'll do just fine during this game. And it's something I will love to watch.
Nice. Awesome. Anything else on the defense before we roll into a new segment for the listeners?
No, let's get into our new segment. So again, if you guys were with us last week, we were doing these breakdowns the same as we're doing today. And then to kind of wrap it up, we're obviously give out the grid of the week. During last year's NFL season, we were also giving out our what we were calling preemptive grid of the week. We decided that we didn't like the name of that. We didn't like the way it was going. So we changed it up a little bit. We're introducing a new segment for this Lions season. Kyle, you came up with the name, so you introduce it.
Yeah, man. This is we're calling it Between the Lions, man. And really, in this segment, we're just going to break down. I mean, it could be a little bit anything, but it could be your, favorite tidbit that you're looking to watch. Maybe a matchup, maybe a player matchup that you're especially looking to watch for the game on Sunday. Could be a player prop that you're licking your chops and wanting to bet the over or the under. It could be really anything, but really just, we want to break down just like one portion of the game for the listeners each that we are especially looking for. And this could be, it could be, the difference in winning and losing could be this one, bit of intangible. So yeah, like we said, we're going between the Lions and breaking it down for the folks.
So each week we're going to be coming to you guys with this. I can kick us off with my Between the Lions. Again, that's kind of just one matchup that I'm going to be looking for, someone that I think is going to be, have an outstanding game or, one way or another. I'm going to go with the main reason. We just talked about 40 minutes about the Micah Parsons stuff. I did briefly mention it when we were talking about that and the loss of Kenny Clark and the vulnerability that is maybe up the middle for the Green Bay Packers on defense. I think Between the Lions, I'm going to take the over on rushing yards for the Lions running backs combined. Specifically, if you want to do Jahmyr Gibbs, that's fine. But I'm going to do just in general the Lions rushing attack up the middle. I think that Green Bay already struggled in defensive pass rushing and run stopping last year. Obviously, they then upgraded their pass rushing, especially on the outside with Micah Parsons. But in doing so, as we mentioned, they kind of left themselves vulnerable up the middle. I think like we talked about with the Lions offense, it might take a minute for, Jared Goff to get back in his groove of things, for the offensive line to get, to be able to block some of that pass rushing. I think in order to make up for that, we're going to be a really run heavy, at least first half of this game. I think they're going to set the tone really well on the offensive line, running up the gut. So I love Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, the combination of the two of them in this game. I think they're going to absolutely eat literally between the lines for my between the lines.
Oh, there we go. I love it, man. Very, very creative there. A little play on words. Yes, love it. And I would love to see just the Lions pound the rock. I did just look at the weather report. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day in Lambeau in Green Bay. 60 degrees, looks like partly sunny, and not much wind. Looks like about 6-mile-per-hour wind. While I do think that the Lions are going to be able to air out that ball, first and foremost, it's got to be pounding that rock. Love that. The Lions, live and die, and mostly live by running the ball. Like we said, we got two phenomenal running backs. I like that prop a lot. I don't know if you can actually go into a sports book and bet the combined prop. You might have to choose both the over for Gibbs and Monty, but I do like that. I'm gonna go Lions, and this is I have a couple actually. So one matchup that we've talked about this guy. You can't not talk about Micah Parsons when you're traded like this and you're a generational talent. My between the Lions is going to be the matchup of Micah Parsons versus Penei Sewell. I think they do line up Micah, both sides of the field. So it's not like it's going to be on every play. I know Micah is, he pass rushes a ton, but he's not, he's also maybe going to drop back in coverage a little bit. So it's not to say that every single play he's going to be against Penei, but I do know that a lot of the time those two are going to be button heads. So really excited to see what Penei Sewell can do. We know he's one of the best right tackles in the league. He's, what makes him so great is his athleticism. So if there's if there's a tackle who can stop Micah Parsons, it's going to be Penei Sewell. We've seen the tape from previous games, Lions versus Cowboys, and Penei has fared pretty well. So I'm definitely going to be looking at that matchup. Other one for me though, Gibbs over 22.5 receiving yards. I just feel like that line, it seems low to me, and I haven't gone back to see what he averaged last year through the air. It was probably somewhere around there, maybe 26, 27 yards a game through the air. But I just feel like 22.5 is really low, especially considering we got the report that Johnny Morton is going to want to, line Gibbs up in the slot sometimes, have him run routes. I just feel like he's gonna have 22.5 receiving yards by halftime. He's going to catch a couple screens, maybe pop one off. He could get almost that entire amount. He could get more than that on one screen. So I'm definitely looking out for that prop as well.
Yeah, I love both of those. I think in general, I think it was mentioned Johnny Morton and what he's doing with this offense. They're just going to get really creative, and I'm all here for it. I mean, he's such a rare athlete in the NFL. There's only a few guys like him out there. So any way you can just get him the ball, I think you need to. And doing that, getting him involved in the passing game, especially if it's short distance between 5 yards from their line of scrimmage, that's going to help J-Mo up the top. They're going to have to start respecting that even further and have a linebacker on him, which is already a nightmare, a linebacker teeing up against Jahmyr Gibbs. But if you start bringing guys down to help a linebacker to defend against Jahmyr Gibbs, then you open up J-Mo up top and, you get a big-time play like that. So I love both those. I think, going back to the Penei stuff, like you said, we saw Penei do pretty well against Micah when he played, when we played the Cowboys in the past. And like we said, we don't even know if Micah's going to be playing, but if he is, that's definitely a matchup that I think everyone in America is going to be wanting to see. I mean, either way you slice it, that's a top 3 offensive lineman going up against a top 3 to 4 defensive end guy. So anytime that they're going up against each other, that is something that I'm absolutely going to be watching. So yeah, that's about 50 or so minutes on the Lions for our first preview of the season. Obviously, this was a little more heavy of a preview because we didn't have a review to do. Next week, we'll be breaking it down a little bit half and half. We'll be doing the review of this Packers game, the preview of the upcoming game, and then we'll throw in any other Detroit sports things that pop up over the last few minutes, and then we'll wrap up with some grit of the week. So
before we wrap up, score predictions. What are we thinking? What's your score prediction? Official score prediction for Sunday for 4:25 Eastern time at Lambeau?
Man, admittedly, I haven't put any thought as to I do have the Lions winning. I don't know. I haven't put much thought of the actual score. I'm gonna go with Lions. I'm gonna go Lions 28, Packers 24.
Wow, I like it. I'm similar. It's funny enough. I have a 4-point margin as well. I have Lions 24, Packers 20. So now I don't know what the over-under is. So I think I just feel like this might be an under game, just with everything that we already talked about. I think that offenses may struggle at times. The defense might have the upper hand for both teams. So I think it might be an under, but yeah, Lions. I do have them 24, Lions 24, Packers 20 in this one.
So the over-under is at 47.5, which
Okay.
is
So
essentially right in between you and I.
You have slight over. I have an under.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, I like both those. I think we're both on the same page in that, like, our defense is going to play pretty well, and it just depends on how much our offense is able to put up. So we'll be covering the remainder or the review of that game starting next week. Let's wrap up the show with some grit of the week. You want to kick us off?
Let's do it, man. My grit of the week, Dan Campbell. And I will say it's kind of a little funny, but a report came out recently. I think the original interview with Dan Campbell was from 2022, but in 2022, Dan Campbell said that he eats 3 pints of ice cream per night, and I believe that flavor of choice for DC is some kind of salted caramel vanilla pint. So yeah, he has since said in I think a recent podcast that he's cut that down. He might be closer to one pint a night, but still, I mean, what an absolute hoss, a unit. Your head coach is putting down 1 to 3 pints of ice cream a night. I mean, the guy is what is he like 6'6"? Like he's gigantic. He's just a mammoth of a human being. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much grittier than putting away that much ice cream per night. Yeah, grit of the week, Dan Campbell.
I think maybe like a grit of the week adjacent, maybe to his doctor, because that putting down that much ice cream in a night, and we already know his coffee order and how much caffeine he puts down per day is also astronomically insane. So putting up that much caffeine and that much ice cream every single day, even if he has cut it down a little bit, shout out to his doctor keeping him safe. And like you mentioned, he still is in great shape. Actually, we were just having this argument the other day, is like, which NFL head coaches would you feel comfortable throwing on pads and a helmet and getting out there and playing? And Dan Campbell was definitely one of them. And damn near at the top of the list. So with that much ice cream per night and that much caffeine and coffee order, he looks pretty good.
He's top of the list for sure. I mean, I think there's probably only a handful of NFL coaches that could even sniff that, and Dan Campbell is certainly at top of the list.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a separate Mount Rushmore or something of head coaches that could still strap it up and get out there and you feel comfortable about what they're doing. My grit of the week, we've done a lot of football talk here, only football talk today. I'm going to switch it up, get a little baseball in the mix. My grit of the week is going to go to Kyle Finnegan, the Detroit Tigers sometimes closer. AJ Hinch likes to use him as a closer sometimes. Will Vest as a closer sometimes, depending on literally who has the hot hand, who's playing better over the last few days, the matchups, everything. Sometimes it's Kyle Finnegan. Kyle Finnegan has been absolutely insane since the Detroit Tigers traded for him. Just to break down the numbers. So obviously he's 33 years old, reliever. Originally we traded for him from the Washington Nationals. Before he was with the Tigers, when he was with the Nationals, he had 20 saves, almost 40 innings pitched, 39 innings pitched. He had a whip of 1.282. He had an ERA of 4.38. And again, about 40 innings pitched, 20 saves. So as a closer, not necessarily what you want, having an ERA of 4, a decent long-term reliever or something, but not a closer. Since coming over to Detroit, he has pitched 14.1 innings, has an ERA of 0.000, has a whip of 0.419. He has been absolutely nails. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a reliever. Actually, I know so this dominant of a relieving performance post trade at the MLB All-Star game it doesn't happen very often. So right now, this was updated as of yesterday. I don't know if he went in the game against the Mets yesterday, so this might be out of date. But as of yesterday, he had thrown 14 scoreless innings and counting for Detroit. He was the first MLB reliever to do that since being traded at the deadline, since Eric Godel in 2018, and the last time for the Detroit Tigers since 1983. So it's absolutely insane to have numbers like he has right now. He is literally making history, MLB history, and doing it on a bullpen that, like, over the month of August was absolutely fantastic. So my grit of the week is going to Kyle Finnegan, with a little bit of Scott Harris for going out and making the trade and shutting a lot of people up about this bullpen.
Hell yeah, Finnegan's been awesome, man. Shout out to him. I think he won AL reliever of the month too for the month of August. So I'm just stacking up some accolades there. And he did not pitch last night. So yeah, the team as a whole gave up 10 runs, but yeah, none more from Finnegan. So yeah, that ERA streak is still going strong in a Tigers uniform. So yeah, dude, congrats Cal Finnegan and DC for Grits of the Week.
Yep, and we're going to need him down the stretch as we get into October baseball. Obviously, like we mentioned, we'll do a lot of Lions stuff from here on out, but there'll definitely be some Tigers stuff over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks as we get through September baseball and into October baseball. So that is our show. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. You can find both Kyle and I on Twitter at Kyle_Marino and myself at Dutton_Tyler. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram or on TikTok at Gridiron Report, on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1, or you can watch us on YouTube at Gridiron Report. We're going to be starting to do a lot more content on the YouTube as well. If you're into any streaming or gaming or anything, jump over to the other podcasts on the Mic Drop Studios page. They're called Party Chat. They are dropping weekly episodes having to do with gaming, video games, streaming, everything of those sorts. Finally, you can join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That number is 313-306-7939. And if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars and leave us a review saying so. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, y'all. Restore the roar.
Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retired, Grit Iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on, blast beats, thunder and loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make your fandom a vow. Make your fandom a vow.